Tonight we're continuing our You Call the Shots series, and this series has been topics. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been all from topics that you have suggested. And tonight we're talking about the legitimacy of the Bible. And so the first person that I thought of that would be like, wow, I would really like to hear more about the Bible from Pastor Ed Baker from Orchard Hill Church. Yes, and this is Ed, and I've been listening to Ed share. I've heard more messages from you, Ed, than I probably have from any person sitting in the pews of Orchard Hill Church since I was a second grader.
Yeah, I probably made Ben the man he is today.
You did, Ed. You totally crafted this young fellow. I'm even trying to do a little facial hair thing like you.
Yeah.
Stay hip. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the Bible tonight. We're going to use the questions that you asked. We're going to use the video screens. And you know, how about we try a little practice with this? We're going to have a video and then an answer. We can just practice and see how it goes.
Let's do it.
Take it as it comes. So this is what the night is going to look like here for the message.
Kind of scary.
How do we know that the Bible just isn't made up?
Whoa. How do we know that the Bible just isn't made up? That's quite the practice question.
It is. Well, let me give you a little background. You probably know the first time I read the Bible all the way through, I was in junior high, so I was the age of a lot of you, and that was like 50 years ago. So I've been reading the Bible and learning about it for 50 years, and I've really come to believe that it's true.
All right. I think you were 50 years old.
Yeah.
So you've been reading the Bible and you can trust it?
Yep, I think so. Let me tell you a couple of reasons why I think the Bible is trustworthy. One is, you got to know how the Bible was copied, because this was back before printing presses and Kindle and all that sort of stuff. So they had a whole class of people called scribes whose job was just to write out the Bible. So they would take a book of the Bible and copy it and make a new copy of it. And here's what they did. They believed so strongly that the Bible was the Word of God that it was really important. So they wanted to make sure they copied it absolutely right. So here's what they did. They would make a copy of it, and then they would count the letters. So they would start at the beginning and count all the letters to the end. They would start at the end and count all the letters to the beginning. They would start at both ends and count all the letters to the middle. And if they were off by a letter, they would throw it away and make a new copy because they didn't want to make any mistakes.
They'd just be done with it.
Yeah, they would be really careful about it.
So all these copies then should match up from the hundreds of years that they were.
Right, and so it's amazing. The more copies we find, the more we realize they did an incredible job of that.
Wow.
Here's another reason why I really think the Bible is pretty trustworthy, is because I think that when the Bible was written, there were enough people around who would have said, this stuff isn't true if it hadn't been true. I don't know if you remember, Ben, you might not know this. I'm a good friend of Kurt Warner's. You know, Kurt used to be here at UNI, and we became good buds.
The Kurt Warner.
Yeah. In fact, I married him and his wife, Crystal. And so anyway, like 3 years ago, we invited Kurt Warner for Easter at Orchard Hill Church. And Kurt Warner was there and gave this great talk, and everybody was so moved. It was just a really powerful service. And felt really good about it. But,
Wait a minute. I kind of have to object to think what you're saying. I think I was there. You know, well, one of the things, Kurt Warner, I read about him. He's from Iowa. He went to UNI, and his wife isn't named Crystal.
Oh.
His wife is named Brenda. Oh. So I object. I kind of just a little pushback on what you said. It's a good story, but it's not quite right.
So he's saying your story isn't true.
Because I know about them.
What? He's been going to Orchard. I've been going to Orchard too, and we haven't seen him there.
Okay. Now, do you realize what just happened here? I was saying some things happened, things were true, and there were people here who said, wait a minute, I was there. I know that's not true. The same thing took place in the Bible as well. People are saying, Jesus rose from the dead, the tomb is empty, people have been seeing Jesus. If that wasn't true, there would have been people standing up and saying, wait a minute, I know that's not true. I can show you where the tomb is and his body is still there. So one of the reasons I believe it's true is because there were eyewitnesses there, and if it hadn't been true, they would have said so.
Definitely. I really like that. Hey,
let's go on to some more questions.
Yeah, let's do it. And before we do, I'm sensing a little bit of rumbling in the room, and I would just ask young men and women that whether you're really excited about what we're talking about tonight, we're going to be talking about it for the next 10 or 12 minutes, and I would really ask that out of just respect for everyone in the room, that we could just be quiet and have this space to talk. So let's continue on with these questions.
Alright, well, there's, I think, a few things in the Bible that are far-fetched, in my opinion, like when Adam and Eve were around and there's like a talking snake telling them not to, or telling them like, to eat an apple, that, that's how it was, but, and, you know, and how would you know that if Adam and Eve were like the only two people on earth? How do you know that story's real?
How do dinosaurs fit in with the Bible?
Is it true that Jonah got swallowed by a whale or a big fish?
I know in the Bible it says that God created us, but in school it says, well, there's theories that there's evolution from us evolving from primates and other stuff. And how do you explain that?
Why are there two creation stories?
Whoa.
One of those creation issues.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, let's talk a little bit about creation. You know, at the beginning of the Bible, the book of Genesis, it talks about how God created everything. And I think for those of us who are Christians, there's no question that God created it. The question is sort of how did he do it? And in the first chapter of Genesis, it talks about day 1 and day 2 and day 3, and God creating things on different days. The question is, what does a day mean? So let me ask you a question. If I talk about day versus night, how long is a day? What are we talking about? 12 hours, right. Now if we talk about what day is this, it's March, whatever it is.
The 9th, a Wednesday.
Yeah, how many hours are we talking about? 24 hours. What if we talked about, like back in my day when I was a kid?
Oh, that could be like a decade.
It could be a long time, couldn't it? Same thing is true in the Bible. So just because it says on a certain day, it doesn't necessarily mean 24 hours or 12 hours. Could be a long period of time. So maybe what people who believe in an evolutionary process are saying, maybe that fits in really well with what the Bible tells us about how God created. But there's another possibility too that I want to tell you about, and it's called a young Earth theory. Now let me present a possibility and see what you think about this. So let's say that God created Adam. All right, let's say God made Adam, and here's Adam standing there. God created him 5 minutes ago, and you looked at Adam. How old would you think Adam was? Well, you'd think he was, he's grown up, he's got a beard, he has hair on his chest, and you get, well, he's probably 25, 30 years old. But how old is he really? He's really just 5 minutes old. But God created him mature, and with the things that a mature person would have in his body. Now, what if, when God created the earth, or even when God created the universe, what if he created it mature? What would a mature earth have? Well, it might have mountains that we would look at and we think they took millions of years to form. Or it might have fossils in it that we would make us think that they were from millions of years ago, when really maybe God just made it fairly recently. So I think either way to believe it is true. Either to believe there was a lot of long time and evolution that God used to create things, or maybe it's not as old as it appears to be. Does that make sense?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that it was all of God, he created it.
Either way, I think I'm pretty convinced that it was God who did it. Yeah.
So what about the Jonah question that we saw in there?
Yeah. Was Jonah swallowed by a big fish? One of the things we got to figure out in the Bible is what of it is meant to be history and what of it is meant to be like a story. So Jesus told stories, parables. Maybe there are other parts of the Bible that are parables or stories too. I know that I have read a couple times of people, modern day people, sailors, who have actually been swallowed by big fishes, swallowed whole, and lived to tell about it. So it's sure possible, scientifically, for somebody to be swallowed by a big fish and to live to tell about it. But You know, maybe that's a story about Jonah too. Either way, I think maybe would be okay.
But it totally could happen.
Sure, it could. Yep. Yep.
Well, I think we're ready for the next set of questions.
Let's do it.